Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am Kyle McEwen. You can find me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA. Our theme music is the song Happiness is All the Rage by The Promise Ring. You can find their music on jadetree.com. All right, this is our fifth DFS podcast. So if you came here for year-long league stuff, I do apologize, but you're going to have to skip to the next podcast or go back to last night's. Let's get right into it. I've only got a few minutes today to kind of go through the value picks that I sussed out on the DraftKings. So let's take a look at it. There's 7 games on the slate on Monday. If you'd like to play against me on DraftKings, you can go to dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com. There's a link right there on the front of the page. Probably the second post if you go there now. And you're going to be able to get a link to the DraftKings contest that we have. So it's just $5 going there. There's only 20 spots available for tonight. So go sign up and play against me and give me your money, please. So, all right, let's talk about it. 3 guys at the point guard position who are under $3,000 who you or I'm not under $3,000 at the minimum of $3,000 that you might be able to use. TJ McConnell is someone you keep an eye on only because on this Sixers team, with Tony Wroten still being out, with Kendall Marshall still being out, they have limited options at that point guard spot. They've been giving TJ McConnell about 25 minutes a game off the bench behind Isaiah Cannon. And if you paid attention to the Sixers last year, after they traded for Isaiah Cannon, they tried to make him the team's starting point guard. It didn't work out. Brett Brown doesn't like how he fits there. He's not a distributor. He's really just a scorer, which if the Sixers had a bunch of scorers on their team or a bunch of ball handlers, cool, that might work. But they kind of need somebody to facilitate. So TJ McConnell probably is a little bit better at that than Isaiah Cannon. And with Wroten and Marshall out, there's a possibility on a given night that the Sixers might look McConnell's way to start going forward here. Jerian Grant, some guys under 5,000 that you can consider using at point guard on DraftKings on Monday. Jerian Grant of the New York Knicks, he's just 3,700, and then Isaiah Cannon at 5,000. So there's not a lot of value picks anymore. It is brutal on DraftKings already, just about 3-4 games into the season, because they have already kind of price adjusted everybody. So you're only going to get a couple of possible value plays, and you got to be really, really good when you're picking your mid-tier or second-tier players, those guys that are in that $6,000 to $7,000 range. You got to make sure you're hitting your value on those guys. And in general, people talk about trying to get at least 5 DraftKings points for every $1,000 that you spend or around that. So if you're looking at a guy who costs $77,000, you should be getting about 35 DraftKings points out of him for a given night. Now, if you look at what they've averaged over the first couple games, if you go in and look at their game log and check how many minutes they're playing, that can maybe help you discern whether or not there's the high or good probability for that player to meet their value on a given night, depending on how many minutes you project them to have and how big of a role. All right, moving over to the 3-guard spot. I suppose I'm really reluctant on a 7-game slate against you guys to kind of share some of my favorite picks for the night. So, but I'll do it. At point guard, probably my favorite pick is Ricky Rubio. He's a reasonable price, and you're going to be able to get him into your lineup and surround him with a bunch of good guys. You guys all see my lineup now. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw my lineup for the night, so I might have to go switch that up. But anyways, Ricky Rubio is somebody who I really, really like, and it's because he's matching up against Portland. Damian Lillard's not going to be able to stay with him. If they put CJ McCollum on Ricky Rubio, he's not going to be able to guard him that well either. And when I say stay with him, I don't mean like limit him shooting offensively, but Rubio's going to make these guys look like clowns in a lot of respects. So high probability for lots of assists out of Rubio. I really love Karl Anthony Towns tonight if you're looking for a good play at the center position, but we'll get to that. Let's go and take a look at the shooting guard guys. As far as any $3,000 players that you could potentially use, there aren't any. There aren't any at small forward either. There aren't any at power forward. And the one at center is questionable in Miles Plumlee from the Milwaukee Bucks. But the only reason I'm even looking at Plumlee is if Greg Monroe cannot competently guard Brooke Lopez or Thaddeus Young, the Bucks might be forced to go to Miles Plumlee if John Henson isn't going to play on Monday night. So Miles Plumlee at 3,000 at the center position. Sorry, I'm jumping all around here, but I'm just getting excited talking about this stuff. Under 5,000 at the shooting guard position. Nick Stauskas is just 3,300. Manu Ginobili is 4,200, and Langston Galloway is 4,400. The issue with Stauskas, or the bugaboo with him, is that he might have limited minutes. He's probably coming off the bench again on Monday for the Sixers. So he only played a little over 20 minutes in his last game. I believe it was 23 minutes, but he scored 12 points. He ended up putting up, I think, 21 DraftKings points or 24 DraftKings points in those few minutes that he was out there on the court. So Stauskas on this Sixers team, if he's getting more minutes, he's somebody who we need to be watching right now for the daily games because he's still at a value. Manu Ginobili, first couple games of the season, played super well, and he's still so cheap on DraftKings. The biggest issue with Ginobili is from game to game, you don't know how many minutes he's going to get. And San Antonio is coming off of a back-to-back, or is on a back-to-back set right now. They played Boston on Sunday, so we don't know who's going to rest for them on Monday night. And now that can be something that you can take advantage of if the Spurs are resting some good players, and maybe you end up putting a New York Knicks player in your lineup who you wouldn't have put in if you knew that Tim Duncan or somebody else was playing. So make sure to check the Spurs lineups going into the evening. Of course, you're always checking every site, every lineup for every team to make sure that your guys are actually playing. But Manu Ginobili, first three games of the season, he's played right about 20 minutes per game. He's been putting up over 25 DraftKings points every game, and he's still just 4,200. So if Manu's playing on Monday, you really like the price and the production that you're getting out of him right now. It's just a concern of maybe the Spurs rest him. It's what you're always worried about. Langston Galloway, he's been getting 25 minutes off the bench every single game, at least. He's been putting up at least 20 DraftKings points every single game. So at 4,400, there's a really good possibility that Langston Galloway will make value for you on Monday. So he's a good punt play to throw in there with the rest of your guys. Moving on to the small forward position. Like I said, there's no $3,000 minimum salary guys to use, but some guys who are under $5,000 that you can consider throwing into your lineups. Jeremy Grant at 3,800 from Philadelphia. You're a little bit concerned that with Robert Covington coming back into the lineup, that Jeremy Grant may not get enough minutes to put up that nice across-the-board production that he does. But if you're looking for a punt play at 3,800 and that's all you got left to spend, maybe throw Jeremy Grant in there. Bojan Bogdanovic, the Milwaukee Bucks have looked terrible on defense so far this season. And Bogdanovic has been doing his best to try to reclaim that starting role at shooting guard on the Brooklyn Nets. He's just 3,900. Decent upside. He's an upside play with definitely a low floor. So he could bite you in the butt. Corey Brewer at 4,300. He puts up about 20 DraftKings points a night. So you're going to get close to value. Same for Tony Allen at 4,300 and Andre Iguodala at 4,400. It's just, you're going to probably get value out of these guys. So they're good filler plays because you know they're not going to bottom out on you in most cases and leave you, holding nothing, which is usually what really kills lineups, All right, moving up to power forward. Value plays there. There's nothing at the minimum salary of 3,000 that I liked. Under 5,000, you can consider Nemanja Bjelica or Bjelica pizza, rhymes with pizza, Bjelica, because he's at 3,700. He's playing against Portland. Portland plays Ed Davis a lot of minutes off the bench. Nemanja Bjelica has been one of the first big men, or one of the first big guys off the bench for the Timberwolves in the first few games. Somebody to consider. Kyle O'Quinn at 3,900 played over 20 minutes in his first two games for the New York Knicks, put up good DraftKings production in that time. Only played about 15 minutes in the Knicks last game. You wonder how many minutes Kyle O'Quinn will play against the Spurs on Monday, and that's the issue with him. That's the red flag. Is he's 39. He's a good value. He could put up some nice production for you, but there's the possibility of it bottoming out. And then Clint Capella at 4,200. You're most likely going to avoid this because Dwight Howard is back on Monday. But if Terrence Jones can't play, maybe Clint Capella gets enough minutes and you can still use him out there. So possibly consider Clint Capella at 42 for your power forward slot. Taking a final look at the center position, guys at the $3,000 minimum salary. Like I said earlier, Miles Plumlee from the Milwaukee Bucks. If you've only got $3,000 left, you filled up all your other spots and you're like, you know what? I need to throw somebody in at center and he's cheap and maybe a little bit of upside. Miles Plumlee against the Nets. He'd be matching up against Bargnani, Thomas Robinson, not good players. And then guys under 5,000 that you can consider using on DraftKings in the center position. Myers Leonard at 4,500. He put up 30.5 DraftKings points on opening night. Then in the next two games, he played against the Phoenix Suns, both games, matching up against Markieff Morris. Did not play well. He's also been dealing with some numbness in his shooting hand due to suffering. He got hit in his funny bone last week, and that's kind of lingered a little bit. So yeah, there's some red flags about Myers Leonard. But he's also the cheapest, highest upside guy that you're going to be able to throw into your center position on Monday. I really think everybody should get Karl Anthony Towns in their lineup. He's averaging 40 DraftKings points a game. He cost really the biggest thing about Karl Anthony Towns, his cost, man. He costs you just $6,100. By the way, he's the best performing center so far this season on DraftKings from the guys that are playing on Monday. 44 DraftKings points a game. He cost you just $6,100. He put up 30 and a half DraftKings points in his first game. He put up 57 and a half DraftKings points in his second game against Denver, matching up against a Portland team that I just don't think they can stop him. Get Karl Anthony Towns in all your lineups. If he bombs, well, who cares? That's going to happen. So maybe not all your lineups, but a lot of them. That's pretty much all I got for you today, guys. I got to get running off to work, but thank you so much for listening to the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast DFS show. We'll be trying to do this before 1 p.m. Eastern every single day throughout the week. And then whether or not I have travels issues and stuff like that on the weekend, we'll be looking to do it there. Of course, you can catch our Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast regular show in the evening or in the early morning. We record it at night, Sunday through Thursday, so it's available right in the morning when you wake up. It's on iTunes. It's ready to listen to on your commute in the morning. So hopefully you guys all enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You can find it. If you do, please rate and review us on iTunes. That would help a lot. You can subscribe there as well. And then if you would like to support the podcast by donating to the podcast, you can do that at our website, dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com. Don't forget to go sign up for that contest on DraftKings. Go to the site, click on the link, sign up. It's just $5, and I want your money. Love you guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.